Hello and welcome back to Helldivers 2, everybody. Welcome back to Democracy. Today we're going to be taking a look at the MG-43, also known as just the light machine gun that you get at the very start of Helldivers. This is the first weapon stratagem that you get. You get this right at the very start of the game, so you don't need to buy it whatsoever. It's just with you right away. You actually use it in the tutorial as well, which is pretty cool. This definitely seems to be based off of other LMGs, similar to like the MG-42. Not quite the same style, but it does look kind of similar. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of this weapon, as well as how good I think that it is, and just kind of discussing the overall weapon itself, and what scenarios I find it the most useful in. For Helldivers 2, just about every piece of equipment seems fairly useful, given the right circumstances, so I don't think there's any real bad way to go about picking stratagems or picking weapons in this game in general. I think they've done a really good job for the most part of balancing everything. There is going to be more patches coming up soon, but I didn't see anything about the LMG getting changed. If it does, that's cool. If not, that's also cool. So let's go over the stats of the MG-43. We'll talk about the pros and cons after that, and then we'll go over like some builds that I like using for it and the situations I find it the most practical in. So first up, the LMG has a cooldown of 480 seconds or 8 minutes. That's a pretty long cooldown. It's not the longest out of any of the support weapons that you can get, but it is quite a wait. Good news is, though, that you can find the MG-43 just laying around areas pretty common. That's one of the more common weapons that I've seen just laying around on the ground. This, the other machine gun, anti-material rifle, those ones are all fairly common to find. I guess flamethrower I've actually seen quite a bit of too. So this isn't going to be one of the hardest weapons to find on the ground, which makes it pretty cool if you really like this weapon, but you don't really want to take it as one of your stratagems. There's always an option there. At least for me personally, I usually take one of the stratagems that's a weapon anyway, just so that I can always call down on it, and that way I have 3 weapons that I can switch between, because just being stuck with your primary and secondary can make it sometimes difficult on certain mission types to deal with everything. This is unlocked by default, so you don't have to buy this at all, which is really cool. No investment there whatsoever, so you're stuck with this whether you like it or not. The calling time is 8 seconds. Calling time usually doesn't matter that much for a lot of these type of weapons, since you're usually going to call it in at the very start of the match, or you're going to call it in an area where there's not going to be a whole lot of things going around. However, always remember that you can use the call in as an actual weapon. So if you want to stick this to an enemy, you can absolutely do that if you would like to. Interestingly enough, this actually has 3 different rates of fire, depending on which one you switch it to. You can change the rate of fire by just holding in your reload button, and then, at least on mouse and keyboard, you right-click to go through the options. If you're on controller, I imagine it's D-pad once you go through that, and this changes the rate of fire for the machine gun. The machine gun is always in full auto, so you can't switch it to semi-auto or anything like that. This has a rate of fire of either 260 rounds per minute, 750 rounds per minute, or 900 rounds per minute. This is pretty cool that you can alternate between the rates of fire, so that way you can adjust this to whatever situation you find yourself in. With the lower rate of fire, you have much less recoil. However, you have a lot less pressure downrange, so if you're running and gunning with the light machine gun, this one actually does make sense, and that's sometimes what I keep it on. Usually I don't change it off to 750 because that still feels fairly manageable for me firing it from the hip. It's also very manageable if you ADS this, and the weapon gets more manageable if you're crouching or laying prone. If you're laying prone, then the gun basically has no recoil. At the 900 rounds per minute, it does have a lot of recoil, and it's very difficult to hip fire this, unless there's just a huge swarm of things right on top of you, in which case then by all means go ham with it. But at longer ranges, if you're not laying prone or you're not crouching down, it can be kind of difficult to aim with this thing. This holds 150 rounds in it, 450 rounds in total since you can hold 2 spare mags. Once you go to reload, this does dump everything in the mag, just like most of the weapons in this game, aside from like the pump shotguns that reload 1 shell at a time. So be wary of that whenever you are going to reload this. And whenever you are reloading the light machine gun, this does make it so that you stop in place and you start reloading. So you can't be doing any other actions while doing this one. The MG-43 also has medium armor penetration, which is quite good. That makes it so you can punch through certain armor types. Makes it so you can hurt almost any type of bug besides the heavy bugs and the bile titans. They're about the only 2 that can shrug this off, at least if you're hitting them in the armored spots. In the weak spots, you can still do okay damage to them, not as much as certain other stratagems or other weapons in general, but you can still hurt them. Any of the smaller bugs you can absolutely just shred right through. You don't need to be aiming for any sort of weak spot. Just aim at the head, just keep firing, or aim at the body depending on what the distance is, and you can shred through hordes of them. Same thing goes with the robots for the most part. For any of the bots, you can usually just aim for the body. For the walkers, you can actually shoot them in the legs and rip them apart fairly fast with the MG-43, which is really good. Against big enemies like Hulks, this doesn't work very well, because you can hit them in the eye, but it's really difficult to keep the full auto gun on them and still stay at a distance where you're not in danger of their flamethrower. Obviously, if their back is turned to you, you can spray this right into them and you'll kill them really fast. Same thing goes with tanks, otherwise you're not going to be hurting the tank anywhere. But if you can hit it in the weak spot, you can actually shred it fairly fast. It makes it so the MG-43 is actually fairly flexible on any type of mission. For the pros of the MG-43, this one is actually quite flexible. It works really well with just about anything, so that's always nice. You don't really have to build towards it. It's always a nice compliment, and if you find it on a mission, you're never really going to be upset. At least I'm never really upset when I see an MG-43 just laying around. That usually means at least I have something to spray if I died recently and have to go pick up some sort of weapon off the ground. This clears up hordes really fast of small and medium enemies, and if you just want to be the crowd control of your team, you can absolutely do it just with this weapon alone. It is really good for that. It also makes it so if you're holding an area, you can just mow down absolutely everything. Against bigger enemies, this doesn't work as well. We'll talk about that in the cons. But against small and medium enemies, this absolutely shreds through just about everything. And I guess the other pro is that this does actually have really good sustained fire for the most part. Assuming you have a full magazine in it, it does take you quite a while to actually run through ammo with this. So that usually gives you and your team plenty of time to at least push some of the wave back so that you can reload and then do it again to the same wave or to the next wave that's coming in. So even on like hold the area missions, the MG-43 can still be really, really good. For the cons of the MG-43, you can run through ammo with this sometimes pretty fast, especially if you're like me and you accidentally reload pretty often and you like mess up half of your magazine, so then you lost like 75 rounds that you probably should have just kept anyway, or sometimes even worse than that where I only fire like 20 rounds out and then go to reload because I'm like, oh, I don't have ammo, and then I forget that you actually dumped the entire mag, so I lost like 100 bullets on the ground. You could just say that's a skill issue, and you'd probably be right about that, but it is something to where I have noticed me potentially running out of ammo. Another big con to this is that it doesn't do well against big enemies. We briefly talked about that, where Bile Titans, this doesn't really affect them that much. You can hit them with it, but it's not the best weapon. The Chargers, same type of thing, the big ram guys. You can't really hurt them too much unless their armor is already cracked. If it's cracked, then you can absolutely destroy them with the light machine gun. It actually rips through them really fast. Like if an ally breaks the armor on their leg and you just start firing at it with the light machine gun, you will just shred them, so that can actually be pretty good. Bile Titans, you never really get to that point. It's just better to use explosives or call in stratagems to blow them up. At least I found that to be the most effective way. At least since the railgun kind of got nerfed to where it can't just one-shot them anymore. Maybe you can with the unstable, but I honestly haven't tested around with the railgun very much since it got changed. And it doesn't work very well against tanks and the Hulks either. Again, if you can get behind them and they're not fighting you, then by all means, open up on them with the MG-43. It can kill them actually quite fast. Against all the other medium and small robots, you can actually rip through them really fast with the LMG. It also tends to stagger things pretty often too, so even against some of the more dangerous bots that are firing rockets at you, so long as you keep hitting them, you can stagger them to where they can't really hurt you too much either. I am going to be ranking all the stratagems on a tier list too, just to give my personal opinion and where they will move depending on how much they get changed, or if I find out that I'm just not using them in a very effective way and you guys tell me a more efficient way to use them. The MG-43, I'd probably put this one like right up into B tier. It's a decent all-around weapon that I've never really had an issue taking it on really any mission type, but it's never really like been the standout unless I've just been going for full crowd control, keeping all the small enemies away, and then my teammates are cleaning up all the big ones. In which case then it actually has worked quite well and I'd move it maybe up to A tier. I would say it's a little bit better against bugs than it is against robots, but not that much better, and they're both fairly comparable. This isn't like some of the other weapons like the anti-material rifle, which is okay against bugs sometimes and quite good against robots. This one I think is actually pretty decent against everything. For builds that I like running with the MG-43, usually I like taking this as my weapon stratagem, and then I'll take a second weapon stratagem that kind of makes up for its weaknesses. I really like the expendable anti-tank rounds because they always come up. They only have like a 70-second cooldown. They're actually going to be getting buffed pretty soon too, and I think they're going to be a whole lot better then. So I just use that against any big things like Chargers and Bile Titans. I can break them apart or kill them right away, and then just switch right back to my light machine gun to be clearing up stuff. This works really good in a team setting too, because I can just keep having these up and other teammates can be taking the expendable anti-tank rounds if they think that they need them too. After that, the other two stratagems, you can kind of go with whatever you'd like. Usually I build it for kind of general purpose, so I might take one of the airstrikes like the 500 kiloton bomb or precision strike. Precision strike is actually really good too, especially with how quick it comes up. So you could do that, or strafing runs. If I'm going on a defend the area mission, I'll probably go with some sort of turrets, something like the machine gun turret, maybe even the mortar turret, depending on the area that we're fighting. The turrets are almost always a decent option so long as you put them in pretty decent spots. You could potentially go with even more options like a shield. If you want to go with a backpack shield, that could be pretty decent too. That way it also protects you whenever you are reloading your light machine gun, so that you don't have to worry about the first couple things hitting you and potentially knocking you out of the reload animation, which can be kind of annoying. So would I recommend the MG-43? Yeah, sure. The MG-43 is pretty awesome. I like taking it. If you don't like it, though, I can totally understand that. It can bounce around a little bit. You might want to argue it for other stratagems, too, over taking this one, but I think this one is a decent option for just about any type of mission. Tell me your thoughts on the MG-43 down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. How do you guys like using this? Do you use it, or do you just try to grab it when it's in a mission? There will be more Helldivers 2 content coming out soon, because I have been having a lot of fun with the game. So thank you guys for watching this. I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everyone!